The question on the mind of every chess fan in India is, why did Praggnanandhaa accept a draw in this position? He's black against Alekseenko, and look at his knight on c5, a monster piece over here, attacking the pawn on e4. The rook has got to go to e1, tied down completely. There's a passed pawn on a4, which is extremely strong. The king is active, can come into the game over here. There's only one weakness on d6, which is not so easy to attack. Overall, why did Praggnanandhaa take a draw in this position? Well, you might ask that in this position, even though black is dominating, there seems no way to break through. But I think for a fighter like Praggnanandhaa, this is absolutely not a problem. Let's just take an example. Let's take some moves, for example. He plays rook e1. Okay. Now in the game, Praggnanandhaa just repeated with knight d3, rook f1, knight c5. But assume that he wants to fight on, and if you are asking me how should he win, I would say get your king in first, right? If you get your king to f6, and let's say white gets his king here, now rook a8. I'm not even thinking about my moves, you know, these are all natural moves for a player of Pragg standard. I mean, the rook on e1 is tied down, he has absolutely nothing to do. The other rook is active, so you just exchange it with rook a b8. So for example, I don't even see a very good move for white. I might play something like, let's say, rook a3, or if you attack say b6, I would go king e7, let's say rook a3, then rook b8, and the main idea is to get one rook off the board. So for example, if you play something like rook b5, I take, and if you take cb, I go knight b3, entering with my rook down the c file. And if you play say rook b5, take knight b5, then also knight b3, and after a certain point, something like say knight d2 or even knight d4 and rook b8, I think I'm just going to break through very soon, and this is going to be completely winning. These pawns here are going to cause great difficulty. Now, why did Praggnanandhaa take a draw? That's beyond my understanding at this point. The only reasoning which I can think of is that he was worse in the game, and this is what we will look at very quickly. And sometimes when you are under pressure for the entire duration of the game, you would like to get the game over and done with. This I have read in a lot of Kasparov versus Karpov games, when one side was dominating and suddenly there was a shift in the position and the other side would start getting better, the player who was starting to get the advantage would call it a day, because you know, he says that there is a lot of emotional turbulence that you're going through. First you are worse, you are a little dejected, now suddenly you feel this rush of enthusiasm because you're better, and it's just good to call it a day at that point. Particularly an inspiring choice, but let's just have a look at how the game went to just get an idea as to how Pragg fought back from such a bad position. He was black and he played his favorite e4 e5 and the Rai Lopez, and the nice thing about this young boy is that he tries to experiment. You know, he's not trying to just play the good old classical stuff with knight f6. Sometimes he goes for this archangles with bishop c5. Today he went for this deferred stenets, delayed stenets with d6, bishop d7, a very solid setup. And white plays a simple chess. Yeah, he plays c3 d4, trying to capture the center. So g6 was played over here, and d4, bishop g7. Black's entire strategy is to hold a strong point on e5, and he's not going to exchange in the center. So after rook e1, b5, bishop b3, knight f6, I think white is already I mean, this is just all opening theory, but black has a good development. I think this is something that I would try at some point as black, because the development looks pretty natural. Knight bd2, castles, h3, and now you go rook e8, a4, and the normal Stenitz idea in Ruy Lopez, you go knight a5, bishop c2 and c5. So the question is, after d5, whether the bishop is standing well on g7 or it's bad, and I am not very sure, because usually in normal Ruy Lopez positions you have the bishop on e7 and you go bishop f8, g6, bishop g7 many times. So in that sense I would already say that black has a fine position here because he's got his bishop. But on the other hand, if there are a lot of skirmishes that happen on the queen side, as happens in the game, then this guy on g7 starts to feeling out of place. You know, in order to get into the game he would have to make this huge tour, while the bishop on c1 can simply come into the game very quickly. Anyway, I think black is doing fine here, and after b4 take, I think this is where Pragg could have improved. He could have just taken on b3, bishop b3 and queen c7 when he has good play. I think c3 is weak. I don't see black having any issues here. I foresee a rook coming here, bishop just dropping back, knight going to d7 to c5. This should not be a problem. Anyway, he took on a4 here after a long think, and this meant that white was able to get something in the position, mainly because of this bishop versus this guy. So you're going to put your bishop on e3. This knight would never want to come to c5 because I just exchange it when my remaining knight on f3 is much superior to the bishop on g7. So in a way I get my bishop here, I get my other rook, and then the a pawn looks pretty weak, more weak than c3. So this is already beginning to cause some issues to black, and Alekseenko plays this very well. He puts his bishop on e3, he gets his queen in, a check with the knight, rook to a4. He is slowly and steadily getting things in. Now here's a small trivia for you. What happens if you take the pawn on c3? Well, it's very simple. Just try to think and start the video when you know the answer. Well, of course it's just rook c1, very simple. You trap the queen, so can't do this. f6 had to be played, rook b1, queen f7. Pragg is trying to defend with great ingenuity. He is trying to get some play, but if you see, the knight on c4 is such a nice piece. It's attacking d6, a5. I'm already very much worried. After bishop d2, f3. So this is active play, and here g3 made complete sense to me. Knight d7, and now the question is, after bishop e3, king h7, what should white play? And here I was thinking, why not just rook b a1, take this pawn. Yeah, this looks very nice, juicy pawn, but he went king h2, which turned out to be, according to me, a big mistake, because there will be times when you play h4, and then if white goes g4, this square is going to be weak later, and Pragg takes great advantage of it with the move bishop h6. Nice move, exchanging the bishop. And now if you take king takes and rook b a1, trying to win the a5 pawn, h4 is very strong, because after g4 already queen coming in and is creating a lot of counterplay. So rook e1 was played, bishop e3, rook e3, and now this is the start of the tide turning. G5, good move, queen b7, rook a7, queen c8, g4. So you have this now stronghold. The king on h2 starts to feel some heat in the position. It's not the best situation, and here he made Alekseenko made, I think, a big error. Rook e1. If he was white, he had to play queen d8. Now why is rook e1 a mistake? I would like you to Once again, pause the video. Try to think for yourself, if you were in Praggnanandha's shoes, what would you do? Yes, and the right move here is Queen G8. Praggnanandhaa played it after 7 minutes, and that's where Alekseenko realized his mistake. There is no way he can keep the queens on board. His queen is actually very active and he wants it on the board. That's why Queen D8 was critical. If you play now Queen G8, I can just get my queen to say H4 or even E7, and I can keep the queens on the board. But after Rook E1, Queen G8, you have to exchange, and that's where the position has gone all wrong now. Rook A1, Knight C5, this is weak here. Rook B1, A4, passed pawn is running down the board, and this is where I thought Pragg had to. H4 was played because he wanted to play King G1, C4, and here is what we started off this video with, this position in which Pragg played Knight C5, Rook E1, Knight D3. I was sitting here at night watching the game live, and I was on the edge of my seat, and I was trying to say to Amruta as well, who was doing some work, that today is going to be a great day. Pragg will get into the lead because he's clearly better. And then suddenly this move repetition, when he did it twice, I was like, this looks like Karpovian. He's trying to torture his opponent by repeating the position. But when it happened for the third time, it was not a very pleasant feeling. However, the tournament is still open because all the games on the top board ended in a draw. Aryan Tari still keeps his half-point lead on 6 out of 7. Pragg and there are many other players on 5.5. And today is an interesting game. Pragg will be white against Evander Liang, another young prodigy from USA, the youngest grandmaster currently in America. It's going to be a game to look forward to. Recently in the match of millennials in US, Pragg beat him with the black pieces with a beautiful game. I liked it very much. So I hope that he can repeat his performance, and we'll see the game again tomorrow, same time in the morning.